When the Warriors came into town, they played the Brooklyn Nets. Yeah. Who was Stephen A. sitting next to with his legs crossed? Joe Lacob, okay? That's his partner.
Can I add
and
to
then
that?
you have to realize that.
Crossed?
Then you have to realize. Hold on. And then you have to realize.
Okay. I mean, he's getting a little bit too specific. I mean, that is not true. But I was sitting next to Joe Lacob.
That was a real laugh. My first real laugh all morning. I did a couple of courtesy laughs.
Molly.
Belly one. Thanks, Perk.
He also has a soft spot in his heart for his brother Draymond Green, and we God knows we already. No. We already
I had a
know.
soft spot for Steph Curry. I thought you said Steph Curry.
Hold on, I'm about to get to that. We already know. You acknowledged it. That's the one player that you don't criticize, and you said, I know. And I'm proud of it. So, when you come on here talking about the Warriors, I already know what time it is.
Kendrick Perkins said it on live television, and the second those words left his mouth, people started thinking the worst. He looked right into the camera and said if ESPN fired him today, he would not lose no sleep. That line hit hard because it did not sound like a man who was scared. It sounded like a man who knew exactly where he stood. And that is why the rumor spread so fast. People heard that one line, mixed it with another live TV moment involving Stephen A. Smith, and suddenly the internet was full of stories saying Perkins had gone too far, attacked the wrong person, and got himself fired. But when you really look at what happened, the truth is very different. Not only was Perkins not fired, but the whole story tells you something much bigger about how this sports TV world really works. What made the rumor feel believable was the name at the center of it. Stephen A. Smith is not just another loud voice on television. He is the face of the biggest debate show in sports. He is the loudest voice in the room, the highest paid man on the set, and for many people, he is the network. So when fans thought Kendrick Perkins had crossed him on live TV, their minds went straight to one question. Did Perkins just challenge the one man you were never supposed to challenge? That idea alone was enough to feed the story. Because in the minds of many viewers, if you go at Stephen A. too hard, especially on his own ground, there has to be a price. That is how people saw it. That is why the rumor caught fire. But the funny part is this. Kendrick Perkins did not look like a man worried about any price at all. He looked calm. He looked sure of himself. He looked like a man who had already seen how the game works behind the scenes and knew that one hard quote was not going to end his career. When he said he would lose no sleep if the network fired him, that was not panic talking. That was confidence. That was a man saying, without saying it directly, that he understands the machine. He knows what gets views. He knows what creates clips. He knows what starts arguments. And most of all, he knows that networks like heated moments far more than they fear them. That is the first thing people have to understand about Kendrick Perkins. He is not some random guest who wandered onto a set and got too emotional. He is not some rookie who does not know where the line is. Perkins has been in this world long enough to understand that being loud, blunt, and controversial is not always a threat to your job. Sometimes it is the job. That is why the rumor of him getting fired sounds dramatic, but also falls apart the second you look at the facts. As of the timeline in the article, he was still working there, still appearing, still under contract, and still part of the network's regular basketball coverage. No firing happened. The clip went viral, the headlines exploded, the thumbnails spread everywhere, and then nothing changed. To really get why Perkins could say something like that so openly, you have to understand where he came from and what kind of life shaped him. Kendrick Perkins did not come into the world soft. He grew up with real pain early. He lost his mother in a terrible way when he was very young. His father was not there raising him. He was brought up by his grandparents, and that kind of life hardens a person. It gives him a different center. Then he became a basketball player who built his name not on flash, not on pretty stats. He was an enforcer. He was physical. He was the kind of player who did the dirty work and took pride in it. Guys like that usually do not become careful, polished TV people who are afraid to offend. They become exactly what Perkins became: direct, hard, and unbothered by noise. When he came into the NBA, he was not sold as a future superstar scorer. He became known as the muscle in the middle, the hard voice, the tough body, the guy who helped set a tone. He played on big teams, important teams, and championship-level teams. He was part of Boston's title run. He was part of deep playoff battles. He was around stars, pressure, big locker rooms, and real expectations. That matters because a person who has spent years in NBA locker rooms is not likely to get shook by a heated TV segment. To him, a sports debate set is not war, it is work. And that may be the biggest reason Perkins carries himself the way he does on air. Then came the media career, and this is where everything changed. Perkins joined the network on a smaller deal at first. He was not instantly the main guy. He was not given some giant throne from day one. But he found something that worked: chemistry with Stephen A. Smith. That is the part many people forget when they see dramatic headlines about Perkins attacking Stephen A. These two built a style together. Their loud back and forth was not some accident. It was not a sign of secret hate. It was television. It was conflict with rhythm. It was a show built on strong personalities pushing and pulling at each other. And the reason it worked is because Perkins was one of the few people who could stand there, take Stephen A.'s energy, give it back, and not disappear. That chemistry mattered so much that Stephen A. himself reportedly helped Perkins get a stronger contract. That one detail destroys a huge part of the firing story right away. If Stephen A. was such a powerful enemy waiting to crush Perkins, why would he help get him paid in the first place? The article says he pushed executives to move Perkins from a day-rate role into a real multi-year contract. Perkins himself has spoken with respect about that. So when people try to frame this as Perkins brutally attacking Stephen A. and finally getting punished for it, they ignore the deeper truth. Their relationship was built inside the show. Their debates helped the show. Their tension was useful. That does not mean they agree all the time. It means the conflict itself became part of the product. And that word matters here: product. Because the network does not treat heated moments the same way normal people do. A normal workplace may panic if two voices rise. A normal office may want everything clean and calm. But hot sports TV is different. Debate is the engine. Emotion is the fuel. Clips are the money. The louder the argument, the faster it spreads. The more people get mad, the more people watch. In that kind of world, controversy does not automatically lead to punishment. Sometimes controversy leads to more bookings, more clips, and more reason to keep someone on television. That is the real game Perkins understands. What really confused people is that two separate stories got mixed together. One was Kendrick Perkins saying on air that if he got fired, he would not lose sleep. The other was a live TV moment where Stephen A. Smith ended up looking stunned and quiet. But the person who left Stephen A. looking that way was not Perkins at all. It was Alexis Ohanian. That is the twist that many casual viewers missed. A lot of people saw clips, saw titles, saw reactions, and blended the stories together into one big fake narrative. Suddenly it became Perkins attacked Stephen A. Stephen A. got exposed. ESPN had to act. But that is not what happened. The real live on-air moment that made Stephen A. go quiet came when Alexis Ohanian appeared and calmly checked him over comments about Serena Williams. That was the moment that hit hard because it was not a shouting match. It was not some wild screaming contest. It was something colder and sharper. Ohanian brought up Stephen A.'s earlier comments about Serena and basically made it clear, in a very calm way, that people should stay in their lane when giving advice on things they clearly do not understand. That landed because Stephen A. could not overpower it with volume. He could not dance around it easily. It was a clean, direct public check, and many viewers saw it as one of the rare times someone made him truly uncomfortable on his own turf. That moment was powerful, but it had nothing to do with Kendrick Perkins getting fired. The internet just did what it always does. It mashed together two hot clips, added a dramatic title, and turned separate moments into one fake story. Perkins gave the perfect quote for a thumbnail. Ohanian gave the perfect confrontation for a viral clip. Stephen A.'s name added heat, and the algorithm did the rest.
By the time thousands of people had seen the fake headline, the truth almost did not matter anymore. That is the world we live in now. A strong title moves faster than a careful fact. A dramatic lie beats a boring truth every day online. Still, even though the firing story was false, that does not mean Perkins has been free from real controversy. Far from it. Perkins has said plenty of things on air that got backlash. He has had hot takes that made people angry. He has had moments that made fellow analysts push back hard. The big example in the article is the Nikola Jokic MVP debate. Perkins made comments that seemed to suggest race played a major part in voting in a way that the facts did not fully support. J.J. Redick challenged him directly on air. Charles Barkley mocked the claim later. The next day, the network itself had to correct the record publicly. That was a real embarrassing moment. That was not fake drama. That was documented. And yet, even after all that, Perkins kept his job. That tells you something important. If a network can publicly clean up around one of your comments, issue a correction, deal with all the backlash, and still keep you on air, then one more heated moment is not likely to end you. That is the point. The line for getting fired is not where many viewers think it is. People at home often imagine that one viral mistake equals immediate punishment, but that is not how it works, especially not when the person involved still brings value. Networks do not only ask, did this create backlash? They also ask, did this create engagement? If the answer to the second question is yes, the first question becomes easier to survive. Perkins also had the long-running feud with Charles Barkley. That was loud, public, and messy at times. Shots were thrown across networks, names were called, pride was clearly involved. Yet even that became part of the entertainment cycle more than a career-ending disaster. Eventually, others helped smooth it over, and both sides moved on. Again, the pattern stayed the same. Heat, backlash, viral clips, then survival. That is how this world works for personalities who matter enough. Then there was the Bill Russell comparison, which created another wave of criticism. Perkins said something many people felt crossed a line when he compared the mental challenge of social media for modern players to the kind of deep racism and hatred Bill Russell lived through. That comment got crushed online. People felt it was tone-deaf. Former players and media people called it out, but once again, no firing came. The outrage came and went, and Perkins stayed where he was. So by the time he later sat on television and said he would not lose sleep if fired, that line came from experience. He had seen the cycle. He had lived through
would be the ultimate sin. But Stephen A. himself has crossed many lines over the years and still remained the top voice. He has had moments involving victim blaming, ugly comments about athletes and families, harsh words about people's personal lives, and cultural comments that got serious backlash. He was suspended once, yes, but even that did not end his rise. He came back bigger, his salary went up, his power grew. So if Stephen A. can survive repeated storms and still sit at the top, why would Perkins believe one more hard moment would finish him? Of course he would not believe that. He has watched the pattern in real time. That is why the phrase, brutally attacked Stephen A. Smith live on air, sounds more dramatic than real. Perkins and Stephen A. have a style. They interrupt each other, they go at each other, they laugh, they fight through points, they push. That is part of their on-air rhythm. It is not always pretty, but it is familiar. If people watch enough of them, they know the difference between real betrayal and television conflict. Perkins does not act like a scared employee around Stephen A., and Stephen A. does not act like he wants Perkins gone. If anything, the opposite seems closer to the truth. Both benefit from the energy. Now, does that mean nobody at the network ever gets cut? No. The article makes clear that the network has laid off lots of people over the years. Big names, respected names, behind-the-scenes staff, on-air analysts, producers, longtime employees. The place has gone through wave after wave of cuts. But those cuts usually follow money, structure, and strategy, not one hot clip. That is the part viewers often miss. They see controversy and assume punishment. But the bigger forces are often budget, subscriber loss, digital change, and whether a personality brings enough audience to justify the cost. That is the hard business truth behind all of this. Look at who has survived those waves. Stephen A. Smith survived. Kendrick Perkins survived. Why? Because they generate attention, they create conversation, they give the network what it wants from certain time slots. People watching, people arguing, people sharing clips, people staying in the cycle. That does not make every take smart, it does not make every comment right, but it does make them useful in the eyes of the business. And usefulness in this business can protect a person more than public anger can hurt him. That is why Perkins sounded so fearless. He knows the network is not a moral court handing down punishment every time viewers get upset. It is a company making decisions based on what works. And whether people love Kendrick Perkins or hate him, they react to him, they talk about him, they click on him, they send his clips around. In that sense, even the fake firing rumor served the same machine. It kept his name moving, it kept the show moving, it kept people locked into the drama. The saddest and funniest part of all this is how fast people want a firing story to be true. Many viewers do not even need proof anymore. If they dislike a personality enough, they are ready to believe the career has ended. The minute Perkins said that line, thousands of people were probably hoping it meant something explosive had already happened behind the scenes. They wanted the downfall, they wanted the punishment, they wanted to see somebody finally get checked. That hunger is what fake headlines feed on. They do not need facts first, they need emotion first. Facts come later, if ever. And yet, if you slow down and really look at it, Perkins saying he would not lose sleep is almost the most honest moment in the whole story, because he was telling the truth about how strong his position felt. He has renewed deals, he has years in the seat, he has chemistry with the lead star of the show, he has become part of the sound of the network's basketball coverage. He is not untouchable forever, because nobody in TV is untouchable forever, but he is also not some man hanging by a thread every time he says something loud. He knows that, the network knows that. The viewers may not like it, but that is the truth. The Ohanian moment with Stephen A. deserves one more look too, because that was the real sharp event in all this. Ohanian did not scream, he did not rant, he simply used logic and calm delivery to point out that Stephen A. had stepped outside his lane when talking about Serena.
That is what left Stephen A. quiet. It wasn't some big war, it was precision. And precision often lands harder than noise. That is why people love the clip. It was one of those rare moments where a man known for always having a comeback did not seem to have a strong one ready. But again, that still did not lead to Perkins being fired, because Perkins was not the center of that moment at all. So what do we really have here? We have a fake firing story built out of a real quote, a real different confrontation, a real pattern of controversy, and a very real internet culture that loves to blur all of it together. We have a sports TV world where loud personalities survive not by avoiding heat, but by creating it. We have viewers who think a network will punish conflict, while the network often treats conflict as fuel. And we have Kendrick Perkins, a man who understands that better than most, sitting right in the middle of it and daring people to think one line on television is enough to send him home. There is also something else going on here, something bigger than Perkins himself. Sports television has changed. It is no longer only about who breaks down a pick and roll best or who explains a zone defense in the smartest way. It is about energy. It is about moments. It is about who can create a clip that lives online after the segment ends. In that kind of setup, a loud personality becomes more valuable than a safe one. Perkins is loud. Stephen A. is loud. That is not a flaw in the system. For the system, that is often the point. And because that is the point, the punishment line moves much farther away than fans think. If a calm, thoughtful analyst says something wrong, he may not have enough value to survive a storm. But if a loud, proven attention machine says something wild, the storm itself may become proof of value. That is the ugly truth behind many of these stories. It is not always about right and wrong. It is about what keeps people watching. That is why the same names keep surviving while others disappear quietly. Kendrick Perkins knows all of this. That is why he was smiling through the noise. That is why the quote felt less like fear and more like a dare. He wasn't telling the audience he wanted to leave. He was telling them he was not scared of the fantasy they were building around him. He understood that Monday would come, the lights would turn back on, and he would still be there. And sure enough, that's what happened. In the end, the story people wanted was simple. Perkins goes too far, Stephen A. gets angry, the network drops the hammer. Clean ending, big drama. But the real story is more interesting, because it says more about the world behind the cameras. Perkins was not fired, Stephen A. was not destroyed by Perkins, The man who truly made Stephen A. go quiet was Alexis Ohanian. The network did not scramble to remove Perkins. It kept doing what it always does with strong personalities who drive traffic. It let the noise roll, let the clips spread, and kept the show moving. So if anyone thought this was the moment Kendrick Perkins finally pushed too hard and lost everything, the truth is almost the opposite. The moment proved how safe he really is. It proved that he knows the rules of this game. It proved that in hot take television, being controversial is often a form of security, not a threat to it. And it proved that the machine that feeds on outrage is still running exactly the way it was designed to run. Kendrick Perkins said he would not lose sleep if he got fired, and that line became the center of a story that never happened. But maybe that line still mattered for one reason. It pulled the mask off the whole act. It showed that he understands the system better than many viewers do. He knows outrage is temporary. He knows clips move faster than truth. He knows fans will scream for someone to be gone and still tune in the next day. And he knows that as long as he keeps giving the network something people cannot stop talking about, the chair will still be waiting for him. That is why the rumor spread. That is why people believed it. And that is why when the dust settled, Kendrick Perkins was still right where he started. On television, on the set, still talking, still arguing, still drawing reactions, and still very much employed.